This session will be from 3:15 to 5:15. We'll start with a 1-hour presentation and then 2 half-hour presentations. First up will be Scott Cheney from Collin College in Plano, Texas, and he will be talking about asynchronous engagement, the benefits of asynchronous video in online learning. Scott?
Thanks, everyone. Am I on the screen okay? Okay. It's a new experience for me. Thanks for coming today. My background is in 20th century poetry. My dissertation was on poetry anthologies. So this is a new research direction for me. I teach at Collin College, a large community college in Texas. And I just started this last fall teaching fully online in our virtual campus. So it's called iCollin. And I teach quite a few courses online, and I've been interested in asynchronous engagement here for the last 6 months or so. This is an overview of where I'm headed. I start with something old, talk about the research on asynchronous video. I'll talk about briefly some of the options that are out there on the web, current applications. And then I'll talk also about my use in the classroom. And so in my online courses this spring, I used 2 different applications, so we'll talk about those, and then discussion. So I'm most eager to hear from you, the questions and comments. So we'll save some time for that at the end. Also, my email is there. I have a bibliography that I'm happy to email with the research that I did. This presentation only highlights a handful of sources, but I have a whole bunch that I'm happy to share if you are interested. So let's start with something old. 3 types of interaction. Michael G. Moore, who I think is retired from Penn State, 33 years ago, wrote this article, and you may be familiar with the ideas in the article, even if you're not familiar with the article itself. It was a short article, but in those 33 years, it's been cited 6,000 times. So if you write an article and that happens, probably there's something to it. But the other reason I wanted to spend some time in this article is because so much has changed in those years, but also in some ways, not very much has changed. So first, a quotation from page 1. Many of the greatest problems of distance education arise from our use of crude hypothetical constructs, terms like distance, independence, and interaction, which are used in very imprecise and general ways, each having acquired a multiplicity of meanings. I don't know about you, I could probably add another word to it, engagement. I get an email about once a week, how to engage online learners. The irony is, of course, that my title has that word in it myself, so I guess I'm a part of the problem. So Moore's article highlights these 3 types of learner interaction. Learner to content, pretty straightforward. Learner to instructor. What we are hoping there's some interaction between the teacher and the learner. And then finally, the one that maybe takes place less often is learner to learner interaction. So I have one quotation for each of these. This will be brief, but I think they're helpful. So in learner to content, this is what Moore says. In more recent times, learners have interacted with content broadcast on radio and television programs and with electronic recordings on audio tape, videotape, and computer software. Interactive video disc is the most advanced form of didactic interaction invented so far. Is anybody familiar with the laser discs? Who had one of those? Anybody?
I taught with those.
Oh, you taught? Okay. So this is interesting to me. So my interaction with those is very small. I remember seeing a professor brought one out at one time. And like, wow, that's a shiny record. And it's but they came out in 1978. It wasn't until let me get on the right page here. It wasn't until 1996 that DVDs came out. And so it's interesting to see how far things have come. And we'll see that Moore is very prescient in his ideas. Next, learner to instructor. Distance instructors seek to stimulate or at least maintain the student's interest in what is to be taught, to motivate the student to learn, to enhance and maintain the learner's interest, including self-direction and self-motivation. And so maybe a lot has changed in the technology, but learning has maybe not changed as much. We still motivate our students, or like yesterday's keynote, we help them to become more what they already are, but more so. And then learner to learner. Educators gave their students the advantage of individual interaction with the instructor by electronic correspondence, and the benefits of peer group interaction by asynchronous email and by synchronous computer chatting. So in 1989, I remember first chatting probably like 95, 96, and it was amazing. So that's pretty early.
Before the web.
Yeah, right, exactly. This is pretty early to be doing asynchronous computer chatting. And so he was advanced for his time, but also looking towards the future. And so we'll just move on into that future. Let's look at what that future held, at least for asynchronous video. In 2009, or actually before I talk about the article itself, the articles that I chose were the most popular. Like I said in my bibliography, I have a lot more, but these are the ones that were cited the most. And this was the earliest one, 2009, Griffiths and Graham, The Potential of Asynchronous Video in Online Education. In this study, students, or it's actually a pilot, they did this, students emailed their instructor, they would take a video, then they'd email their instructor, the instructor would download it, he or she would watch the video, and then make their own video and then email it back to the student. So at the time, kind of a big deal, especially if you think of how much bandwidth that would have taken for 2009. But they found that this improved instructor presence. That's a key term from the literature. Instructor presence was improved based on their evaluations after the course. 2012, improving online social presence through asynchronous video. Some of these researchers show up multiple times, Borup, West, and Graham for this one. In this one, they used an early version of VoiceThread, an app I'll mention briefly later. But let's look at a quotation. Yeah, you can see that, hopefully. The results of this study do indicate that the use of asynchronous video communication may be beneficial to instructors who wish to improve the social presence in their course. So moving beyond just instructor presence, but also the social presence in the course, the chances for students to interact with students. And then we recognize that a threaded and easily implemented video discussion tool should be developed. And so they were not satisfied with VoiceThread, or at least not the 2012 version of VoiceThread. Moving on to 2015. Comparing asynchronous and synchronous video versus text-based discussions in an online teacher education course. This is what it sounds like. They compared written discussion board posts with video discussion board posts. Ready for some more nostalgia? They used Google+. Was anybody on Google+? I was on there, but I think I was the only one. Of course, it's been done away with. They shut that down a few years ago. But they did find that students enjoyed the video, and that it, again, like the last study, improved social presence amongst students. And then the most recent study that we'll talk about from 2020, this one, of course, the pandemic pushed school online, and these researchers in the middle of it decided to write an article. It's pretty short, but still they were thinking ahead. And they explained, so there's four authors, and each one had a different application that they used. So Flipgrid, VoiceThread, these will come up on the next slide, or at least a couple of them. Marco Polo, that one surprised me. Marco Polo is on my phone. My family keeps, it's a video, you say, hi, this is what's going on, what's going on in everybody else's day, and then they all reply. I didn't think about using that for education, but they did. And then Ed Connect, which is a tool that I'm less familiar with, but that they use in their classes. And they found in this article that there are some options, and so these probably work better in different applications, depending on which of the four they use. But the benefits of asynchronous video for them were student reflection, talking about their learning. So another was emotional connection to other students, instructor feedback on assignments, students asking questions, and then the one that is the one that probably had made me the most interested is just the flexibility, the time flexibility. So these are the ones that I was considering. If you're interested in knowing more about these or whatever else is out there, I would jot down that web address, blogs.umass.edu online tools. It's I think an undergraduate education course that's been going on since at least 2016, where the professor has the students put together explanations of what these online applications actually are. Somebody showed it to me, so I share it with you, and I found it to be very helpful. VoiceThread, back in, I think, was it 2012, was not super effective, but now it's more than I can handle. So I was looking for something that was just simple video discussion back and forth, and VoiceThread had too much to offer. Kaltura and Netboard also would probably be along those lines. Padlet and Flipgrid showed up the most in the research. There's all sorts of articles that focus on just those two applications, so I decided to do my pilots, one course in Padlet, one in Flipgrid. So this spring, I had a British literature course that I used Padlet in. I had an American Lit 2 course that I did Flipgrid in. And when I start something new, I tend to do it for extra credit. I always think, oh, that's going to motivate the students, but really, because it wasn't mandatory, fewer students did it. But I am using it again this summer in a summer course, and now that I understand and know what I like, I'm making them doing it, and it's working out well. I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. So first, Padlet. Spoiler, I did not like this one as much. It has lots of options, and I think a lot of good functions. But the thing that I liked least about it, well, two things. One is that it doesn't allow for groups in the way that Flipgrid does, and it cost me $10 a month if I wanted to do more than 3 Padlets. Each of these is called a Padlet. But they do offer a lot of flexibility, and for different purposes, I think that Padlet can be a good option. It just wasn't what I was looking for just specifically asynchronous video. And so this would be a typical post for me, and so there were a lot of options. You can do like an idea board, you can do a timeline horizontally. I tended to start with the most recent video, me, and then have students respond that way. But it's not intuitive for discussion, and so you have to scroll down, and it's not as helpful. Also, this is my other problem with it. This is the pane that pops up when you go to put it on a post, and the first thing you see a blinking cursor, so it encourages you to write. And I don't want students writing, I want them talking. And on top of that, you can't find the video button unless you click the 3 dots on the right-hand side there. The camera is just for still pictures, and so you have to dig a little bit deeper if you actually want video. And so I actually had to coerce students to post videos instead of text, just because writing is easier and you don't have to put yourself out there as much. So on to Flipgrid, which I did like a lot better, and I'm using in a 5-week Express summer course. It's, again, British literature this summer. And the settings just overall seem to be better. So this is organized by group. This is my view. I'll show you student view in a minute. Also, it has nice GIFs. So I like to put you can't really see them, but I have a bear waving, one of my favorite GIFs. Sorry if I'm not saying it the way you like it. And then the next pane, this is a member view, they call it, but this is what students see. And you see that it's organized down below. And it also gives these interesting metrics, maybe not super useful, but I like them. Like this one shows, I'll zoom in, 3.5 hours of discussion. And if you click on that, it says something like, here's the example for this most recent one. This is as long as it takes for a cheetah running at full speed to go from LA to Las Vegas. And it's like, that doesn't matter, but I like it. You know, it's like, another one said, this, like I think the first one I had, it was maybe an hour and a half just at the beginning of the course, and this popped up. As long as it takes for a pebble to sink to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And I'm just like, imagine that happening. This is neither here nor there. Padlet does silly things like that too, so if you like those, you'll find it in both places. And Flipgrid is free, yeah. So if you want to do more than 3 Padlets, you have to pay, but Flipgrid's totally free. That's, as far as I can tell. Maybe there's a paid option that I don't know about. Yeah. They are, yeah. I remember reading the blog post from Padlet, and it was kind of, you know, they were sorry about having to start charging money, and they gave the reasons why they needed to. And I paid for it so I could make it happen for my class, and then turned it off. This is not my image. This is from the Flipgrid website, but I used it because it has, it shows the, you know, the mobile application. This is not exactly how it looks, but similar. So you have the, you know, your typical, you know, if you're in your online social media, they would be familiar if they just want to use their phone. I think a lot of my students are using their laptops anyway, which is the bigger screen that you see. And it, in my mind, it works the best on the laptop because you can, it starts with one video, you can see the next one coming, and then it just, it's more seamless that way. On the app, if I remember, I have to kind of click back and forth to get to all the videos. So let's see what else. Oh, screen sharing is an option on Flipgrid, which is probably an option on Padlet as well. It does a lot. But you can do announcements, and of course there's options for written text. Oh, one other thing that comes to mind is the closed captioning is pretty good on Flipgrid. It's automatic, and it's pretty easy to change if it's not exactly correct. I have a hard of hearing student in my class this semester, and so far it's been good enough for her from what she says. And if like I said, you can go in and quickly change it if something's not quite right. And so it's user friendly. Yeah, so that went faster probably than I thought, but I'm interested in hearing what questions you have, what applications you've used for video, or whether or not it's asynchronous, and happy again to email my bibliography. So questions or comments? Yeah.
This is just a comment. When I was classroom teaching, I taught high school English, 9th and 11th grade. When I was teaching 11th graders, as trying to keep them reading, which was always a fight.
Mm-hmm.
I would have them do quarterly just book talks. I tried to keep it like as informal as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But we would use Flipgrid, and it was a great medium because they would like to use the excuse of not wanting to stand in front of the class.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is it didn't require me to take the time out of my class to make them stand there and speak to everybody.
Yes.
So they would have to record their presentation, and we would just take one class day and then plug, you know, headphones in, and I'd say, okay, go watch 10, take a couple notes, turn it in, I'll give you credit. But yeah, I was really surprised to see how well it worked and how willing they were to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the other teachers in that K-12 setting that went to use it, the biggest, and they were all looking at me because I was the one who would use it, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Their biggest question had to do with accessing the videos.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you had any experience with that. I know the purpose is discussion, but their big question, especially from like a special ed standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
was, is there a way that you can control who sees the video and who does not? And I never got far enough into the settings to know, and it wasn't my purpose, so I didn't really go too far with it. But I had some good success with it, and we have a few instructors at the university that I work at who are starting to use it.
Oh, okay, that's good to hear. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure if the way that I use it, I will put a link. So I put up a weekly prompt after the reading. Here's what you need to talk about, and here's a link to the specific Flipgrid, and so it'll take them directly to. Pardon me for the quick clicks. It'll take them directly to our. It'll take them directly to one of these, but I can also give them a link to all of it, which is what I didn't have in Padlet, so I couldn't give them. Here's our whole class. It's easy to scroll through, but it'll just take them to one. And so I think I'm not an expert. I've only been using it for a matter of months, but the idea is that it will only the people with the link can get into it. Also, you can't download, as far as I know, students can't download other students' videos. I guess they could take a video of the video if they wanted to, but users can download their own videos, so I can go back and reuse my videos for the prompts to get things started. The students probably notice I have a different haircut than like if I respond to one of them, but yeah, it seems to be pretty helpful. Any thoughts? Yeah.
What I found is that younger people are less afraid of videos than older guys. I mean, it's maybe it's culture. They were born with YouTube. But I had a case last semester where I had a YouTube star in my class, and she had an issue. She couldn't be on videos because she had a contract.
Is that right? That reminds me of my student that said that she wouldn't be able to turn in some assignments because she was on American Idol that week. Yeah, so and it actually was true. I googled it, and there she was. She still gave her a little leniency, but still, yeah. I think I give my students not like you said. I think most of them this summer, when I made it mandatory, that nobody really batted an eye at it. Even my hard of hearing student, I emailed her and told her like this is part of the course beforehand because I got an access email from our we call it the access department, and she's had no problem with it. I think that I give students the option if they just don't want to have the video on, that's fine, or just audio would be okay too. But I think you're right. I haven't had. Typically, I do have a lot of non-traditional learners in my classes. I work at a community college, and so it's very diverse in terms of age and otherwise. And in this current class, I have a couple, and they've been pretty okay doing it. So I guess you just don't know.
Yeah, similar to what we've shown here. I've worked on projects at the university level, but all the video is built into a learning management system.
Right.
It's on Google, right?
Mm-hmm.
And faculty in medicine, so what the profs do is they write their objectives and their rubrics based on a proportion of the grading as video. So the professors would record a video in a medical lab and post it to Google. And through the course, students would be required to apply and then create their own video in the lab and post it. And it works really well when it's built into the instructional design process of the course. Right. And students know that it's a great requirement. It's a way to visually explain that they understand the process. Right. So if it's medicine, they have to. Video is a great teaching tool. Right? Sure. And it's also a way with video to repurpose video. Okay. So if a teacher's going to produce a video, they can do it once and distribute it through all of their classes. And I think that's one of the benefits of video. You don't have to do it over and over again. That's true. Right. So there's some interesting. We're at a unique spot that there's a variety of technologies that you use. It depends pedagogically what makes the most sense for the learners. Right? Yes, yeah, and yeah, the discipline and the particular class and the professor. I had a friend I was talking about this before I started, and he said, well, we were in Canvas, and he said, well, why can't you just have the students do a video in the discussion board and go from there? And it felt like to me having something that was not Canvas would make it more attractive. It makes it more attractive to me, to be honest. Like when the first discussion board is just an intro. Who are you? It's an interesting fact about you, and I'm always like, oh, I want to go see that. And it's the same when there's a discussion board and they're writing it, but it's a little different. You actually feel like you're meeting somebody. And then the idea of being able to repurpose your videos is, and I think that's in the abstract for the presentation, is that I don't do Zoom classes, and when given the option between the two, I've always chosen to do asynchronous completely, and I think that's one of the reasons. You give the same lecture over and over again, or if you can just upload a video, it saves time, and then you can maybe use that time in other ways. Okay. Thank you.
We're at Canvas School as well, and from the other instructional designers or other instructors who use Flipgrid, I feel like it's easy to access. Like you said, you just have a direct link, and that's very easy to put in there. And you don't have to tangle so much with the LTI issue. I don't know if anyone else has that, but like if it turns out to be an LCI half the time, I just don't. I'm like, this is not worth the hassle. But this, you don't have that kind of hassle with that. And I've also found that using some sort of video that is like browser-based is so much easier. We have a certain component of like international students. There's a Jesuit worldwide program that one of my instructors works with. And we don't know what kind of technology or access those students are going to have. So having to avoid downloading, certainly we use Panopto as well. And so asking them to download a program, not as useful. So that's another benefit of Flipgrid. It's all right there.
Yeah, it just works. Yeah, it's simple and accessible in many ways. And the other thing so we have a Microsoft email, and that you can log in with your Microsoft email with Flipgrid, and so that just makes it really easy for students. They don't necessarily have to create a new account or use a personal email or jump through any kind of hoop. So for my situation, at least, Flipgrid works very well in this similar way.
And I think that's the reason it's going to remain free is Microsoft bought Flipgrid.
Oh, that helps. Yes,
so
yeah.
They said that they're going to keep it free. I got a couple comments. One is that there is a Flipfest that Flipgrid is doing an online conference coming up at the end of this month. It's free.
Okay.
So if you probably go to flipgrid.com, you can probably find that and register if you're interested in learning more about Flipgrid.
Flipfest?
They call it Flipfest.
Okay.
So I just signed up because I got an email from Microsoft. So. We're also a very rural campus, and so a lot of our students don't have access to broadband. So a lot of asynchronous online classes.
Right.
So this is very useful in that. Now, and just another, I was at a conference back in February, and there was a poster session that they had done on Flipgrid, which was interesting. The professor was using it. He did not want students to videotape themselves for a discussion. He wanted them to use Flipgrid. He was having them videotape them describing a process. I forget what kind of class it was. I don't know if it was mathematics or something or science. I think it was science actually. It might have been medical, where he wanted them to draw and videotape them drawing out and talk about process. So you could use it more than just someone videotaping themselves. And a couple of comments he made was he tells the students they can't be more than 2 minutes long. Keep it short. And I don't think there's a way to limit. Is there a way to limit the length?
Yeah, you can choose I don't know what the smallest is, but I usually do 1 minute to 2 minutes. 5 minutes might be the max. I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he had said he put a limitation on it. Keep it short. Didn't want them to be lengthy. So for him going to grade, didn't want to keep it short. So he had no limitation on them. They had to kind of impose on the students because they all wanted to.
They wanted to do more.
Yeah, they all wanted to do more. But he artificially put that in. So it's very, very. I haven't used it, so. But I think it's very.
Insanely user-friendly too. And one, just because I taught teenagers, which are just their own beast, but like one of their gripes about it was that it seemed a little bit like elementary. And I mean, elementary students do use it. I mean, it's intuitive and easy enough that you can have kindergartners recording on Flipgrid and things like that. I just told them to get over it. I'm like, yeah, it works. So don't fund it. But that was just one comment that came up in the use of it. I don't think that any of the higher ed students that I know who use it have any complaints about it.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to make it give students the option to make it more like Snapchat or something where you can. They're not necessarily filters. I don't think we can put music and stickers and things like that. And every once in a while, I'll have a student post a video, and then there's kind of this slow music in the background. It's a little weird, but it's at least they're engaged. The other thing that when you were talking, I was reminded that it automatically allows for text comments, and so I turned that off right away so that how am I supposed to respond to another student? Record another video, and so it gives them the chance to do video on responding to video. Thanks for the ideas. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Those of us not using the technology. So could you sort of describe the class that you're doing and how you use this in the class?
Yeah,
for sure. The elements are and so on, how it all fits together.
Yeah, so typically when I teach literature, that's the thing that you can't recreate in an online class is a really interesting literary discussion around a table. And that's why I got into literature, because I love those discussions myself. But people need to take classes, they need online courses. So when I teach literature, I've always done just text-based discussion. And I've taken classes like that, and it's pretty dry. And who actually reads everything, especially coming at the end of the week and there's a whole list and you have a deadline coming up in an hour, you're not going to read through and actually interact. And so for my classes now, I do about half and half. And so for my summer class, that's only 5 weeks long, I'm making them do a video and a text discussion. So about midweek, they're doing a video on one reading. By Friday, they're doing a video, or they're doing a text-based discussion on the second reading. In a semester-long class, 16-week class, it'll be every other week. And so one week you'll do a Flipgrid, the next week you'll do a written discussion board. And that way, everything isn't in one basket, and there's kind of a mix. My discussion, I'm a writing teacher primarily, and so I make all my literature students write. So most of my grade comes from the papers, but this is not insignificant, so you can't skip it and get an A. I think it's about 150 points out of 1,000. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a small but important part of the class.
Is that an assignment then for a week or something to comment on a particular topic?
Yeah, so when I was introduced to Flipgrid originally, I should probably have her name written down. I don't, but we at a faculty development conference, our keynote speaker used it, and she was from a music school in Boston, I think, and I could track it down if you're interested. But she used it, and she had a bunch of different prompts, and she was I can't remember. I think she was a behavioral scientist, but and so I stole a bunch of hers. But it's just like typically these are pretty short responses, and so I'll say like, I think the example that I had for you was in my Padlet. Rate your reading plus muddiest question. And so for 30 seconds, rate your reading, and then the next 30 seconds, what's the muddiest question what do you not understand? And so just like, what did you like about the reading? Would you not? I encourage students to just not prepare too much, just to talk. And of course, like I do, I'll play and like, oh, that doesn't work, and I'll delete and start over. But at least it's the level of research is never really deep, and so that it's more of a short engagement rather than like an end of the semester presentation. Mm-hmm.
So do you have a corresponding assignment page in Canvas that then you use to grade whatever they're working?
Yes, that's actually one thing I liked about Flipgrid. In Padlet, you don't get a lot of room to put text, and so I would say see Canvas for detail. So I'd have a page in Canvas that had all the information. They'd have to go back. In Flipgrid gives me a little more room. I don't know if I have a page where you can see it. No, I didn't print that out. But if you click on one of these discussions, the first half of the page is that same identical description that's in Canvas. They see it again in Flipgrid, so they don't necessarily have to go back and forth.
Just a side note on discussions, one thing I've been trying to do is, do you have them like post a response to your discussion, and then they have to reply to 2 students like down model?
Yeah, usually one post, one response. Yeah.
Okay. I've been doing a staggered discussions over 2 weeks, which might fit in real well with your Flipgrid, but I have them do a post response during the first week.
Okay.
And everyone has to post during the first week.
Yes.
And then second week they post replies,
That's
so that everyone gets
interesting.
their first post in and has
Yes.
the whole week to do it.
Yes.
Usually that
The longer post, yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
It's real tight, and people are always fighting it. They always want to log in Sunday and do all of
Yes.
it. So I know that Canvas is trying to implement a 2 deadline feature that supposedly is coming up whatever they read.
Oh, in one assignment, you mean?
Yeah, their discussions.
Okay.
They're redoing their discussion module, and it's been promised for, I don't know, 5 years.
Sure.
But
It's in the works.
It's in the works. It's
Yes.
on the roadmap.
Right.
But this was way, I just have one assignment. I just say, you got to post by the end of the first week. Your
Right.
response has to be in. If it's late, you get dock points, and if you post your replies early, I dock points.
Oh, there you go.
You have to post your replies in the second week, so it gives them time to
To read.
think about it and really stretch it out. And I stagger, so there's always during 1 week, they're always posting to this week's topic and replies to last week's topic.
That's helpful. So they have maybe actually have time to read the other students' posts before I have to post and then respond in 45 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
That's a good idea.
To stretch it out.
I like that idea. And one thing that I've done in previous classes that I haven't tried with Flipgrid is have students respond to it's kind of a post and a response. So I ask whoever posts first gets to post about whatever they want, and then the next person that comes in is required to write a long post that addresses the same topic as the first person, and so it forces them to not just come in with their own ideas, but to be and so probably nobody's going to read all of the posts, but at least there's a forced interaction there that. But I like that idea of spreading it out over the course of a couple of weeks. That would work good in the long semester for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not in a 5 week.
No, nothing works good in the 5 week. Although it's not as bad as our 3 week term, which I was like, yeah, I'll teach it if you need somebody, but it's not good. We're missing some stuff here.
What is your, as far as course reviews and student response, in general, dislike, what's been their feedback on it? Yeah.
So far from the spring, the students that did do it, I think enjoyed it, and they didn't have a lot of complaints with how do I make this happen for Padlet or Flipgrid. It was more just an option. I think they said I wish more students did it in the spring. And so at the current class, I'll be eager to see what they say at the end of the course if it helped this kind of student interaction that I'm forcing them to do. One of my students, he's up here. The first class, and I think this kind of goes back to your comment about the famous YouTuber. His interesting thing about him is that he's famous on TikTok. He makes food videos, and then he showed a picture of himself with a donut like this big, and so it gives the students the chance to be creative and to get their ideas out there. And I think to your point, they're used to it, and maybe even non-traditional students are more used to it now. I know a lot of people my age and older who have Snapchat. It makes you look good. Other thoughts or comments?
Certainly, newer generation students are going to be coming forward, and they're going to be used to this. It's going to be second nature for them.
Right. Yeah. So there won't be that kind of I have to do what?
Right.
It's just okay. Yeah.
Because we have to keep up with them.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
That's true. Well, thanks so much. It's been a good discussion, and I hoped I got to get some ideas from you all. Feel free to email if you would like if you're interested in Flipgrid research. There's probably not too many people that are, but I'm more than happy to share it. And hopefully we have finished earlier. We can have more time for the other ones. Is that right?
We can't move up to.
Oh, because of the virtual. Okay, I can.
So you have another 20 minutes.
Okay. I can dance or something. I think we can maybe just.
Our university's using Flipgrid.
Flipgrid?
Yeah, we use Panopto.
We looked at that. We ended up with Flipgrid, but it's a similar.
K-12, I never heard of Panopto.
Okay.
So coming in as a totally new user, it's not the most fun. It's not the greatest. And I've had a lot of struggles with getting students to use it because there's certain things that are better in the app versus Panopto captures their web-based version, and I've heard it's but with that one class I mentioned where they're international students, it's well, we're gonna have to go with this because the other one's not really an option. The other thing that's tough about Panopto is it looks very different on Mac versus PC. So then we have to have double sets of all instructions to help people troubleshoot and whatnot. We only have so many Mac users in the office, and so then it all gets shuffled to them. And also, you had mentioned using the media recorder within Canvas. And I have an instructor who really, really wants to do video feedback. And I think the students love it. I mean, he'll read their paper and instead of annotating, he'll just show himself. But the processing is so slow and not very reliable. And I've told him, I'm like, I can't solve this problem for you, but you can be the squeaky wheel. I'll pass along all of it. So I mean, he's tangled with Canvas directly before about it, and I've never really seen it.
Plugin, or is that a feature that's built in?
It's built in, but then it's the longer it is, it takes too much longer to process, and anything happens to your connection, you're out. And, just all kinds of issues with it. So I've kind of discouraged it, to be honest. And you can embed directly from Panopto, so we use that a little bit.
And can you say just real quick what basically Panopto is?
Sure, Panopto is just like a lecture capture.
Lecture
program.
capture, okay.
Yep.
It has negative connotation, reminds me of the Panopticon. But maybe that's not meant to be the case.
Flipgrid is a competitor to them. We looked at several of them, yeah.
And so it's, is there an interactive piece, or is it lecture capture and then you post it?
It's pretty much just capture and post.
Okay.
Like I said, it's helpful that we can embed it directly into Canvas, and then they can interact a little bit. Like if they embed a video on a discussion board, they can comment to each other in text specifically, as they do to each other. I think sometimes our instructors don't use, especially video, because they don't know how to troubleshoot it, and they're worried about students having problems.
Yeah.
So that takes a little bit of encouraging and supporting. But
Flipgrid, you can embed quizzes into the videos. We do that with I don't remember all the people.
I think we can, but to be honest, we have some faculty that use Edpuzzle instead. And that's a big K-12 resource to pause video and add questions and things like that. So I don't know how functional it really is, but I think it's there.
So it's Flipgrid uses quizzes, you said?
You can embed, you do a capture or a short video, you can throw into their quiz points where it'll stop and ask them questions. You can even do things based on your answers, like jump to the end of the video, jump to parts of the video.
Interesting.
But
can you edit the video that you captured?
Yes, you can do, I'm sure with Panopto you can too. You can go in and chop pieces out. So if you make a mistake while you're recording, usually I just pause and jot down the time myself and come back and chop that piece out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can even blur things out too, so it's got some features like that. But it's a contracted piece that we pay for.
Oh, sure.
But I know that several instructors like the embedded quizzes because it'll tell the students you have to watch the lecture for the week, and like some students they'll watch it or they'll skip through it.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, you didn't get points because you didn't watch it, because I'll tell you did that quiz. Like, what quiz?
What quiz?
Oh. It's in there somewhere that they had to answer questions.
So I'm guessing it's not revealed on the timeline.
No, it's not.
Yeah, where is it? And what was the quiz application that you mentioned?
Edpuzzle.
Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle.
But yeah, for K-12 that was really great. Same kind of thing. A little more accountability there, which was nice in that particular context.
Okay, great.
We seem to be getting a lot into the technical side of production of video. I mean, my career was not video production, was production systems. And now what we've done in our school is to hire producers to help us in the teachers' videos, not for the students, but for the teachers. If you're going to produce a whole semester worth of lectures, you get a producer to help you get good quality videos out, and then you add those to Canvas or to whatever. Because otherwise we have to hire people who are good at technology as well. But I'm sure they're coming out of college now, but
yeah, that's true.
It'll be a while until they want to find them.
One of our biggest challenges with videos at the college that I worked at was length, because the professors wanted to do their entire lecture the same way that they've always done it, and they were like 45 minutes to an hour and a half sometimes. So we had to help them adjust to, shorter, like definitely no more than 15 minutes, but really it should be just like 3 to 5 minute chunks. And that was so hard for them to contextualize and adapt to. But once they did, they loved it, and they got such good feedback from the students. They were happy to do it.
Yeah, that's hard for somebody that's been doing those lectures for 10, 20 years.
One of the things that Panopto will do, like recorded lectures, so it's you can schedule lectures ahead of time, and you just choose like what the room is on campus, and so the camera will turn on and it will record an in-person lecture. I mean, and there's benefits to that, but that's exactly one of the downsides. I had an instructor that was like, "Oh, I'll just use all my lectures." they were like 90 minutes long. I was oh, so scary, but yeah.
We just had them sit and watch them.
Yeah, you're required to sit here for an hour and a half and watch it.
Of course, I remember doing back to, back to the 80s and the 90s. Like my master's was, they mailed me videotapes, and you watched the videotapes. And you audio recorded comments with a group, and then you mailed the audio tape back for feedback.
That was like a cassette?
Yeah. But,
Fish recorded.
if you had to watch these videotape lectures, that was distance learning. Back to the video disc. The video disc was I taught 8th grade science back in the 90s, and they didn't give me textbooks, they gave me a video disc and a video disc player. This was horrible. I just had like a little TV in the room, and like the students were supposed to get all the content through the TV, not, showing them vocabulary words to copy down off the video disc. It was terrible. Very terrible.
Yeah, I can imagine the user interface wasn't great either.
Yeah.
Well, you look at the course now. I'm involved more with this corporate training and so forth. We look more at what the performance, what somebody's supposed to be doing with the knowledge. So if you take your leadership course and look at what you want the students to be able to walk away with and be able to do, does this methodology change that? Does it change what you expect from them, what you want them, what they can do, or is it pretty much saying it's just a new way of doing it?
I think it's the same, a new way of doing it. I'm hoping it will be more effective because one of especially in my literature courses, I really want my students to come out with an appreciation and experience of other cultures, other ideas than their own, and be able to see that interaction from other students from different cultures that have different experiences. And so I'm hoping that a text-based discussion forum, I'm hoping that the asynchronous video is more effective than a text-based discussion program for those ends, that they've come away as better humans. That's my ideal. I mean, certainly I have 7 or 8 actual SLOs that the state gives me, but I'm trying to help students be more knowledgeable about the world. And I think just seeing, even in the backgrounds that the students have on their videos, you can see that there's different socioeconomic, there's different people with that are just, they care, they don't care, they're tired, angry. Like you see facial expressions that I think really help students to see that everybody doesn't have the same experience as I do. And I think that's helpful, and hopefully that it's good.
Does Flipgrid do virtual backgrounds? I know there was, I mean, listening to the COVID stuff, there was a lot of discussion about that.
Yeah, right.
You know, that people might have been forced to do this work in their childhood bedrooms.
Right.
And it's almost an invasion of their privacy necessarily to ask them to record something.
Right.
This kind of referring back to the Zoom classroom.
We had, I was still teaching at that time before I became a creative, and we had our conversations, we had a lot of legal discussions about it.
Sure.
But one of their major concerns was what could be seen in the background of the videos, and mandatory reporter status. If you saw something in it, and again, that's a whole different context compared to the higher ed situation, but that was something that came up a lot.
I don't know. Does it do that?
I don't know. I haven't tried. It has quite a few functions that I haven't explored. It has a lot of random stuff.
Maybe that's something they'll implement.
It seems like a no-brainer to have something like that.
Well, obviously Microsoft does Teams, so maybe they will throw that in the Flipgrid.
Yes, that's true.
How do you grade, when you make an assignment and ask students to upload a 3-minute video, how do you grade?
Yeah, it's a good question, especially when I did 2 courses in the spring. It's a low stakes assignment, and so I'm not. It's a completion grade. I mean, I will watch them, but I'm not delivering detailed feedback. Other than I'm trying to enter the discussion myself. At certain points, I'll come in and summarize or respond to ideas that have happened, and then at the end, I try and do kind of a summary of what we've learned, or what we hopefully will take away from it. But for me, it's a completion grade. And I grade lots of papers, so I have no qualms about that. When I spend hours and hours grading papers, it's nice to have at least something that's a completion grade.
It's a great, like, quick formative assessment tool.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something with working in higher ed, I feel like I'm always encouraging a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Using that to get just a peek of like where students are at. So even if it's just a completion grade,
Mm-hmm.
you can see, you know, when it comes to literature, what are they looking at, what are they not looking at, what are they thinking about? So then it gives you some direction as an instructor of where they're headed and what they need. And so that's really
helpful. That's true. You can tell if they've read, and especially in the summer course that I'm teaching, there's a lot of reading. And so if they're talking about something that happened on page 1, as opposed to something later, and you just get a sense of their understanding, like you said. And what do I need to respond to? What hasn't been mentioned? That if this is a survey course, what do they need to know that nobody's really touched on? So I can put that in at the end. Okay. Thank you very much.